There we go. And we are live. Hello and welcome to the Youth Show. My name is Tia Diemo. I'm excited to introduce our guest. He's Mustafa Ali. He's Somalian Canadian. He's a strategy and government relations advisor for the National Council of Canadian Muslims and a former stakeholder relations manager for the Premier of Alberta. He joins us live and direct from Edmonton. Hi, Mustafa. Thanks for coming on to the Egg Show.
Hey, T, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So we're talking about this article you wrote for the Edmonton Journal, fighting racism by empowering the Black community. I just wanted to pick your brains. Really, do you not think everyone right now has just about had enough of Black Lives Matter and racism, discrimination, and all that kind of talk?
I don't think so. I think it's very much real and very much alive. I think it's going to continue to be, I think, top of mind for folks so long as, racism continues to be an issue. And I think it seems almost daily now where you're hearing about police shootings or some form of violence happening south of the border and in Canada as well. And so I think, I think we're going to be talking about this for a really long time, unfortunately, but I think it's necessary.
And some people, what do you say to those people who feel that when we talk about racism, discrimination, Black Lives Matter is because we don't have better things to do? We're trying to be the victims as opposed to the victors. What do you say to them?
Well, of course, there are many things you can say to that, but I think because we're alive, I'll choose my words carefully. Uh, I think it really comes down to I don't think anybody wants to be talking about this. I think if there wasn't a need to talk about the issues that folks in the Black community are facing, we wouldn't be talking about it. We'd be talking about, our ambitions, our dreams, the things that make us happy. And so I think one of the things I came across, during the George Floyd incident was a post where someone had said, the incidents around racism have made almost every Black person an activist overnight. And I
Hmm.
don't think it comes naturally to many of us. And so I don't think it's something people are bored or happy to talk about, but I think it's a necessity. And the people that talk about it, I think, deserve the utmost respect and admiration. And I think I've grown in my appreciation of the work that Black Lives Matter and others are doing to this end.
Do you think there's enough information out there for Black folks to get ahead? I had a meeting this afternoon with the publisher of this magazine, and at the back of this magazine, I just did a free promo for Melanistic. They've got the resource guide, and my sister was just saying that if you do not want Black folk to know something, put it in a book. Black people will find it in a book. True or false? The question is, do you think there's enough information out there for whoever is seeking to advance, to get empowered, to find such information?
I don't think I don't think there is, and I think it's something we can do a better job at in terms of getting the information out there with regards to what opportunities do exist. And I touch on this a little bit in the piece that I put in the journal, and in something a couple of friends of mine are sort of looking at right now in terms of how do we get resources, whether they be in terms of job opportunities or otherwise, in front of people. And I think there are a number of people who are already doing work to get that in front of the Black community. And I think hopefully as that work progresses, there'll be an opportunity for people like myself and you and everybody else to help promote that, so that people aren't relying on a magazine exclusively to learn about opportunities, but they're finding it on social media and they're finding it through the grapevine among other places.
Certainly. So, how can we break the backbone of racism in this city? Is it possible? Hmm.
I think it's possible. I think it's a really loaded question that I don't know that I know the answer to. And frankly, I think I don't know that anybody has a silver bullet when it comes to solving racism. I think it's going to be an iterative process that's going to take some time. But I think there are really practical steps that we can take toward empowering Black Canadians. And I think that's really what I'm trying to focus more and more on in terms of, one of the issues that Black Canadians face at a significantly higher rate than the general population is unemployment. If you look at Statistics Canada, you have twice the level of unemployment among Black Canadians than the general population, even when you take into consideration similar higher education levels. And I think that number grows all the more stark when you're looking at Black youth. And so I think there needs to be more effort or more efforts put toward employing Black Canadians. I think the other aspect when we're talking about empowering Black Canadians is really about supporting Black businesses, right? And I think that's a really tangible thing everybody can do. And I think there's no shortage of Black businesses in Edmonton, and among other many other ways of helping support Black Canadians or being a good ally. I think there's two things that I'm sort of looking at right now.
When people say Black people are not empowered yet, with the UCP, we have Mr. Casey Madu. With the NDP, we have Mr. David Shepherd. And then you want to say Black people are not empowered. Is that the full story?
No, I think it's definitely something to be proud of when you have members of government from the Black community, and I think all of us are happy to see that. I think unfortunately that's just not the end of the story. I think the story goes on. I think we need more representation at the C-suite level. We need more representation in our schools. We need more representation really in the media. And so the work that you're doing is incredibly important. And so I think their representation is not where the story ends, but definitely is an important aspect of empowering Black Canadians.
Now, when we talk about supporting Black businesses, even within us Black folk, there's a lot of infighting, it's like crab mentality. This is cool. The first person out of the bucket. And that worries me personally as a broadcaster. I'm just wondering, you've had a very, how can I put it? You've had a luxurious life. I know you mingle only with the super rich, the wealthy, the famous. Just you have exclusive life, or I don't know. And what I'm trying to say is, how do we support Black businesses when we're fighting each other? And I'm going back to your article when you alluded to the fact that you've not necessarily experienced racism per se because you've had a very sheltered life, you see. But some of us are right there in the dirt, in the mud, and what some of us experience is a pulling down of Black businesses by Black folk, for example. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So firstly, definitely not living the luxurious life. I should admit, not quite there yet. But hopefully we'll see. We'll see. How things unfold over time. But I think also in terms of I think when we're talking about experiencing racism, I think people experience varying levels of racism, and I think the level of racism I've experienced compared to, for example, my own brother or some of my closest friends, it just really doesn't. It pales by comparison, and so that's really where, when it comes to experiences about racism, I think many of us can share that, but I think really we need to be giving the platform for those people that have experienced it, whether it's in the form of police brutality or in the form of being dismissed wrongfully or whatever form it may be. I think people need to hear about those stories. I think coming back to your question around supporting Black businesses, I think naturally when you look at many communities, we have this issue where of course there is some competition, and so sometimes people can be less than I guess, conciliatory in their tone as well as cooperative in their approach. And unfortunately, I feel like that just doesn't help anybody. And so I think there really needs to be more efforts put toward finding avenues for businesses to collaborate. And one of the things that I think I've been inspired by in the past is seeing communities, not necessarily from our communities, but communities that have essentially taking advantage of things like economies of scale. If I own a business and you own a business, we can benefit each other by buying material that we both need in common in bulk, and therefore both taking advantage of that opportunity. And so there really are opportunities for people to collaborate and work together. I think we just need to demonstrate to businesses, be they Black or African or otherwise, that there are opportunities for us to work together. And really, I think more importantly, is source our products and our services from each other. And I think if we do that, I think we go a long way in really enriching and empowering our communities.
So, what role does faith play with this collaborative effort? You are the president of, I beg your pardon, you are, where is it? The Strategy and Government Relations Advisor for NCCM, that's the National Council of Canadian Muslims. Do you think is a question of faith that would help Black folk bond together, or is just maybe a bit more education or whatnot?
I think definitely there's a role for faith to play. But first, I've probably given you an updated bio. I'm no longer at the National Council of Canadian Muslims. I'm currently pursuing my MBA at the University of Alberta. And so I'm doing that full time, and this has been exciting and rewarding. And NCCM is a wonderful organization. So I would say there's definitely a place for faith groups to be supporting this sort of work. And I think one thing is obvious is that people, especially I would argue from our communities, really do follow faith leaders and hold them in very high regard. And so they have a certain power in really getting that message across. And I think it's important that we engage with faith leaders, whether it be the churches or the mosques or the synagogues or whatever places of prayer people gather, and make sure the message of collaboration and common unity is one that resonates with people, and really doing away with the idea that because we are both business owners, we're natural enemies, especially when we're not even in the same I guess industry. And so I think absolutely I would say we need to engage faith leaders and faith communities in this conversation around empowering Black Canadians and Black communities.
In your article, you reflected that we have power and we are powerful. What realistically can Black folk do in Edmonton today to have power?
Yeah, so I think firstly it's an acknowledgement that we have power, and I think when all of what's going on around us, whether it be what's happening in the states or closer to home, I think the intent often is to make us feel small and weak and powerless. And I think even well-meaning friends and allies in their approach to supporting us can be either can be disempowering, and I think none of us are really looking for pity or for people to feel idle guilt. And so I think for me, reminding myself that I have power, that I have agency, and that I have access to power is critically important. And so I think it begins there. I think secondarily from there, I think it goes to really finding avenues for us to lean on one another and support one another. And that's again in terms of supporting Black businesses, sharing opportunities. I think even in the education system, I understand, some folks have formed a Black Teachers Association and better supporting Black students. All of that is critically important, and I think or sort of immediate practical steps that we need to be taking now. And I think obviously the work that Black Lives Matter and others are doing is important as well in terms of really advocating on behalf of Black communities against some of the structural issues. And so I think, a combination of all of those things is what I think will help people like yourself and myself, you know, succeed that much more in Canada.
So I got my bio from the article you wrote for the Edmonton Journal. So pretty much this is the second day or the third day at your MBA. Is it day two or day three? Which is it?
It is day 3, but
Day-
it feels like day 23.
How is
it's,
that
been, it's been a pretty intense week. I think many people like they like the idea of school, myself included, and then once you're in it, you're like, okay, I may have signed up for more than I can handle, but I think I'll be okay. I'm excited.
going?
Yeah, I think in the COVID world, all of us are adjusting
Is it
to.
online? Is it online? That'll be really easy. All you have to do is to type, write stuff,
Oh, I wish
podcast.
I,
Really
I,
nice.
I,
Huh?
I think it's a lot of, I think on Tuesday I had 6 hours of Zoom classes.
Wow.
Yeah, and then of course beyond that you have your assignments and all of that. And so I think the value of an MBA, and I think what I appreciated most of my undergraduate experience was really the people I met and the networks and the friends. And so that is made all the more difficult with, you know,
Oh, yeah.
interacting with people behind the screen.
Oh, yeah.
As much as I would have loved to be in the studio with you, I think all of
Thank
us,
you, COVID.
are adjusting, right? So,
Yeah, to this
uh,
your life. So I know for the past 3 days you've been at school working so hard at the university. And but over the summer, could you share one book that you read? This is the last question, and you can go back to your studies. One book that maybe helped inform your body of knowledge.
um, well, I'm trying to pick maybe I would go with Islam and the Black American by Dr. Sherman Jackson.
Wow.
He's an academic based out of I can't remember what state again, but he really talks about the history of African Americans, particularly how that intersects with faith, and the role of newcomer communities in either hindering or supporting, Black Americans. And I think oftentimes when I think about the experiences African Americans experience in the United States, is significantly different than what we're experiencing here in Canada. And at times, I would argue it's a disservice for us to make that comparison. And I think oftentimes we ourselves can be guilty as newcomer communities of minimizing or in part erasing the challenges and the experiences of those who came before us. And I think we need to do a better job of acknowledging that we are here only because of obviously our Indigenous brothers and sisters, but also those people who were here, many, many generations before us. And so I think that's important that we start with the appreciation and also making sure that we are not undermining the work of others when it comes to, engaging in civil activism.
I will go check out the book Mustafa Ali. Your article, Fight Racism by Empowering the Black Community, was published by Edmonton Journal earlier this year. Thank you so much for joining us. We wish you all the best with your MBA. Some people study and they drink. Well, you're Muslim, you're not allowed to drink. But it's a way to step down from all that stress of Zoom learning. But you make us very proud. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me, T. Have a wonderful night.
You too, Mustafa. Thank you.
Take care.